Something big is happening in the world right now, and most people are completely missing it. It is not a war, not a political crisis, but something even more powerful than both. It is a silent takeover, happening right in front of our eyes, every single day now. The world runs on cars, and cars are changing faster than anyone had actually expected them to. Petrol and diesel, the fuels that powered the last century, are slowly but surely losing their grip. Electric vehicles are taking over, and one country is leading this transformation more than anyone else today. That country is China, and the speed at which it is moving forward is truly shocking everyone. This is not just about making cheaper cars or simply selling more units than the competition worldwide. China is building something far bigger, a complete and powerful system the rest of the world now needs. From the battery inside the car to the minerals dug from deep ground, China is in control. And the most surprising part is that this did not happen by accident or by pure luck. This was planned, step by step, year by year, quietly and carefully, while the world looked away. Today, names like BYD, NIO, XPeng, and CATL are becoming some of the most important globally. These are not small startups trying to survive. These are giants actively reshaping the entire global market. The biggest question on everyone's mind is whether this is just smart business or something far deeper. Is China simply winning a market race, or is it quietly building control over an entire industry forever? Because if you look closely at the numbers, the strategy, and the speed, something becomes very clear. China is not just participating in the EV revolution, it is actually directing it from the very front. Big companies like Tesla, Toyota, and major European brands are all part of this race too, certainly. But the gap between them and China is getting wider every single month and faster every single year. Affordable electric cars, powerful advanced batteries, massive production factories, and a growing global network are happening together. When all of these forces combine at the same time, the rules of the entire game completely change. To understand where China is going, you first need to understand clearly how and where it actually started. Not long ago, China was not a major name in the global car industry at all, surprisingly. Western brands dominated everything, Japanese companies were kings of reliability, European names represented luxury and precision always. China was known more for copying than creating, more for cheap goods than for serious innovation then. But something shifted quietly. The Chinese government spotted an opportunity that no one else was ready to take. Instead of fighting the old game where they were already behind, they decided to create an entirely new game. That new game was electric vehicles, and they went completely all in while others were still just thinking. They poured money into research, into factories, into battery technology, and most critically, into the entire supply chain. Now, just a few years later, the results are undeniable and absolutely impossible for anyone to keep ignoring. Let us talk about the companies leading this charge, because each one is playing a very unique role. The first and biggest name is BYD, which stands for Build Your Dreams, and they are doing exactly that. BYD did not start as a car company. It actually began as a battery manufacturer many years ago. That background gave it a deep structural advantage that most car companies simply do not have even today. When you understand batteries from the inside, you can build better, cheaper, and faster than all your competitors. BYD's strategy has always been clear and simple. Make great cars, make many of them, and price them low. This sounds easy, but executing it at the scale BYD is achieving is genuinely incredibly difficult every day. Today, BYD is not just the best-selling EV brand in China, it is competing powerfully at every global level. In Europe, in Southeast Asia, in Latin America, BYD vehicles are showing up and rapidly taking market share. The most remarkable thing is that these are not low-quality budget cars being carelessly dumped on markets anywhere. They come with solid technology, good range, decent safety features, and designs that genuinely attract real buyers. That combination of price and quality is what makes BYD so genuinely dangerous for every other car company worldwide. Now let us talk about NIO, which is playing a completely and deliberately different game in the premium space. If BYD is chasing volume and affordability, NIO is chasing excellence, luxury, and experiences that people never forget. NIO cars are beautifully designed, loaded with technology, and targeted at buyers who truly want the very best. But what truly sets NIO apart from every other EV company in the world is something surprisingly different. NIO invented and deployed a battery swap system that no competitor has successfully matched at this real scale yet. Instead of waiting at a charging station for 30 minutes or more, NIO drivers simply swap their battery completely. You pull in, a robot removes your old battery, installs a perfectly fresh one, and then you drive away. The whole process takes roughly 3 to 5 minutes, almost as fast as filling up a petrol tank. This solves one of the biggest and most common complaints people have about electric cars everywhere in the world. NIO is building these swap stations aggressively across China, and now starting to seriously expand well beyond its borders. This single innovation alone puts NIO in a completely different and very impressive category from most EV brands today. Then there is XPeng, the technology-obsessed one in this group, always pushing software and artificial intelligence much further. XPeng is not just building cars, it is building smart machines that learn, adapt, and genuinely improve over time. Advanced driver assistance, intelligent navigation, voice recognition, and over-the-air software updates are all standard in every XPeng vehicle. The company positions itself as the closest Chinese competitor to Tesla in terms of software-first thinking and real innovation. And that is a very serious comparison, because Tesla has long been considered the gold standard for automotive software. XPeng is closing that gap faster than most people expected, especially with its newest and most recent generation vehicles. The generation buying XPeng cars does not think of it as just a car, it is a lifestyle device. When you put all three of these companies together, you start to see a very powerful and clear picture. BYD covers the mass market, NIO covers the premium segment, XPeng covers the tech-first younger generation of buyers. Together, they are covering almost every type of buyer in almost every single segment of the entire EV market. And behind all three of them is the full and enormous power of China's industrial machine, constantly pushing forward. But here is where things get even more interesting, because none of this would be possible without the batteries. Batteries are not just a component of an electric car, they are the soul, the heart, and the real foundation. The battery determines how far you drive, how fast it charges, how safe the car is, and how long it lasts. Control the battery, and you control the entire EV industry. It really is that simple and that enormously powerful. China understood this earlier than anyone else, which is precisely why it invested so heavily in battery technology. The biggest player in this space is CATL, the world's largest battery manufacturer by a very significant margin. Its batteries are inside cars made by Tesla, BMW, Volkswagen, Toyota, and dozens of other well-known global brands. Think about that for just a moment. When you buy a non-Chinese car, the battery could still be Chinese. That is the level of quiet influence CATL has built inside the global automotive supply chain over recent years. And CATL is certainly not standing still. It constantly researches and develops the next generation of battery technology aggressively. Solid-state batteries, sodium-ion batteries, and ultra-fast charging solutions are all being worked on simultaneously right now inside China. If even one of these technologies succeeds at real commercial scale, the whole EV industry will shift very quickly. But the real depth of China's battery control goes even further than just the factories and the visible technology. It goes all the way down into the ground, into the mines where the critical raw materials actually come from. Lithium, cobalt, and nickel are the three most critical materials needed to build any modern EV battery today. Without these three key elements, you simply cannot make a single battery, no matter how advanced your factory is. China has spent years quietly and very deliberately securing access to these materials in countries all around the world. In Congo, in Chile, in Indonesia, in Australia, Chinese companies have invested heavily in mining and processing operations everywhere. China now controls a massive and growing portion of the global supply of these absolutely critical battery minerals. Even if a company in Germany or America wants to build its own batteries independently, it remains extremely difficult, because at some point in the supply chain, they will almost certainly need to go through China's network anyway. This is what experts mean when they say China has built a complete vertical monopoly on EV production globally. From the mine, to the battery, to the finished car, to the road, China has a hand in everything. This kind of deep structural control is very hard to break once it has been built at this massive scale. Now let us look at how China is taking all of this and actively spreading it across the entire world. Because the goal was never just to dominate the Chinese domestic market, the goal was always fully global domination. Europe was one of the first major international targets, and the approach was smart, patient, and very well executed. Europe has some of the most powerful and historic car brands ever created. Germany essentially built the global car industry. Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Porsche, these names represent decades of genuine engineering excellence and deeply trusted consumer loyalty everywhere. But Chinese companies came with one simple advantage that was very difficult for European brands to counter immediately: price. The same range, similar features, comparable technology, but at prices that were significantly and noticeably much lower. European consumers who always paid premium prices for local brands suddenly had a genuinely compelling alternative to seriously consider. Many younger buyers started choosing Chinese options without feeling like they were compromising on quality at all, actually. BYD in particular has been the most aggressive in Europe, entering multiple different markets within a very short time frame. The European car industry is now under real and serious pressure, and many companies are urgently scrambling to respond. Some have cut prices, others have formed partnerships, a few have lobbied governments hard to add protective import tariffs. The European Union has already taken steps to impose additional tariffs specifically on Chinese-made electric vehicles entering the market. But even with these protective barriers, Chinese brands keep finding clever ways around them through local manufacturing and partnerships. In Asia, the story is slightly different but equally compelling in terms of China's relentless and deliberate strategic expansion. Countries like India, Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam are all experiencing rapid and exciting growth in their EV markets currently. These are deeply price-sensitive markets where affordability is genuinely the #1 deciding factor for almost every single buyer. That is precisely where Chinese companies have their single strongest and most unbeatable advantage over every competitor in the field. They offer EVs that genuinely compete in quality and features, but at prices absolutely nobody else can currently match. Chinese companies are not just exporting to these countries, they are actively setting up local factories and building supply chains. This is a deliberate and very smart long-term strategy because local manufacturing reduces costs, avoids tariffs, and builds government goodwill. In several Southeast Asian countries, Chinese EV brands have already become the fastest-growing segment in the entire car market. Africa is perhaps the most underreported part of this entire global expansion story, but it is incredibly and deeply significant. Most major Western car companies have historically treated Africa as a secondary and very low-priority market for many decades. China is taking the exact and complete opposite approach. It is treating Africa as one of its most important future markets. Chinese companies are not just selling EVs in Africa, they are actively building the entire infrastructure ecosystem around those vehicles. Charging networks, service centers, spare parts distribution, and financing options. China is deliberately planting very deep roots across the continent. Once that infrastructure is firmly in place, other brands face an enormous and potentially insurmountable disadvantage, starting from absolute zero. This is precisely how you build genuine long-term dominance. You do not just sell a product, you build the ecosystem. Now, let us talk about the most aggressive and powerful weapon in China's entire global EV strategy, which is price war. This is not just smart pricing decisions. This is a calculated and very deliberate strategy designed to overwhelm competitors completely. Chinese EV companies, especially BYD, have been continuously and aggressively dropping prices in ways unsustainable for most rivals everywhere. The reason they can do this without destroying their own business is vertical integration and enormous economies of real scale. Because BYD controls its own batteries, its own raw material supply, and its own manufacturing, it cuts costs everywhere possible. When every single part of the production process is internal, the savings multiply and become structurally very hard to replicate.
Now imagine a competitor like Tesla trying to genuinely match these prices without having the same structural cost advantages at all. Tesla is a brilliant company with excellent technology, but its cost structure is very fundamentally different from BYD's entire model. Tesla buys batteries from outside suppliers, operates in higher-cost Western markets, and has a very different manufacturing philosophy entirely. When Tesla cuts prices to compete, it directly and immediately eats into its profit margins in a way BYD simply does not. Tesla has cut prices significantly multiple times in recent years, and each cut has visibly hurt the company's reported earnings. This is exactly the kind of pressure China's price strategy is intentionally designed to create and maintain over a long time. For traditional European and Japanese car companies still slowly transitioning from petrol to electric, the competitive pressure is even worse. They carry decades of legacy manufacturing costs, expensive labor obligations, and very slow-moving corporate decision-making structures that weigh them down. Competing on pure price against a Chinese company controlling its entire supply chain is a near impossible challenge for all of them. Some countries have responded by imposing very high import tariffs, specifically targeted at Chinese-made electric vehicles entering their markets.
The United States placed tariffs as high as 100% on Chinese EVs to protect its domestic car producers. But tariffs are genuinely not a long-term solution. They raise prices for consumers without making local companies actually more competitive. Chinese companies are smart enough to respond by simply building factories inside those tariff walls to completely avoid the charges. This is the real and complex game being played right now, happening at a speed very difficult to truly keep up with. Now let us spend serious time on the Tesla versus China story, because it truly is one of the most fascinating battles. Tesla changed absolutely everything. That is not any kind of exaggeration. Before Tesla, nobody believed EVs could be genuinely exciting. Elon Musk took a product considered boring and nerdy and turned it into something people genuinely and passionately wanted to own. The Model S was a genuine revelation. The Model 3 made electric cars accessible to a far wider global audience. Tesla built the charging network, proved the technology really worked, and made the entire industry take electric vehicles very seriously. Without Tesla, it is quite possible that the entire EV transition would have happened a full decade later than it did. But Tesla also unintentionally created the exact blueprint that Chinese companies studied, deeply learned from, and then aggressively improved upon themselves.
China watched Tesla prove the market worked beautifully, then entered that same market with cheaper alternatives designed to capture share. BYD is now selling more electric vehicles globally than Tesla in terms of total units delivered every single quarter consistently. That is a remarkable and stunning reversal from just a few years ago when Tesla seemed completely and utterly untouchable globally. But it is important to be genuinely fair here because Tesla still holds real and significant advantages in several important areas. Tesla's software is still considered the best in the automotive industry by most independent experts and serious testing organizations today. Its full self-driving technology, while still imperfect, remains the most advanced autonomous driving system available in any consumer vehicle currently. Over-the-air updates, the global supercharger network, strong brand recognition, and fierce driver loyalty are all areas where Tesla clearly leads. But BYD's Blade battery technology is genuinely impressive and has successfully solved several of the biggest safety problems in batteries. The Blade battery is less likely to catch fire, more energy dense, and cheaper to produce than most competing alternatives today. That powerful combination of safety, real performance, and lower cost is very hard to beat and gives BYD a true advantage. If Tesla is the iPhone of the electric car world, BYD figured out how to make a great phone for far less.
Both approaches have clear and legitimate merit. Both will continue to maintain their own loyal and dedicated market segments going forward. But in a world where governments are aggressively pushing EV adoption to meet climate targets, volume ultimately matters most of all. The country that sells the most EVs shapes the infrastructure, the industry standards, and the direction of all future technology. China clearly and deeply understands this, which is why it remains so intensely focused on volume and market penetration above everything. Now, let us talk about something that genuinely does not get enough serious attention, which is China's manufacturing capability and speed. The ability to build a massive world-class factory and begin full production within months rather than years is an extraordinary superpower. When Tesla tried to build its Gigafactory in Berlin, it faced multiple years of permitting delays and serious legal challenges. China builds factories at a pace and at a scale that is simply without equal anywhere else in the entire world today. A new battery Gigafactory in China can realistically go from groundbreaking to full active production within just 18 months consistently. In most Western countries, that exact same process takes anywhere from 5 to 10 years due to various regulatory hurdles. This speed advantage compounds powerfully over time because every single month of delay means real production and real market share lost.
And behind this extraordinary manufacturing speed is the full and direct power of the Chinese government actively supporting everything. The Chinese government has treated the EV industry as a true national strategic priority for well over a decade now, firmly. Massive subsidies, generous tax incentives, cheap industrial land, government-backed loans, and very favorable regulations have all been directed towards EV companies. This level of coordinated and sustained government support creates an environment where companies take bigger risks and scale incredibly fast. No Western car company has ever enjoyed this level of coordinated and sustained government backing behind its entire growth strategy ever. That fundamental structural difference in support is one of the biggest and least honestly discussed reasons why China has moved so fast. Beyond manufacturing, China is also rapidly and seriously becoming a genuine leader in software and artificial intelligence for electric vehicles. Modern electric cars are no longer just mechanical machines. They are sophisticated software platforms on wheels, generating enormous amounts of data. Chinese EV companies have millions of vehicles on Chinese roads every single day, all constantly generating rich, real-world driving data. This data is used to train AI systems, continuously improve driver assistance features, and develop the next generation of autonomous technology.
The sheer scale of data collection happening inside China's EV ecosystem gives Chinese companies an AI advantage that is genuinely enormous. As cars become more autonomous and more connected, the software and AI components become far more valuable than the physical hardware itself. This is precisely why Chinese companies are aggressively investing in chips, operating systems, and connected car platforms all at the same time. They understand clearly that the car of 2035 will be completely defined by its software far more than by anything mechanical. The country that leads in automotive AI will have an enormous and lasting advantage in the future global transportation economy. Now, let us look honestly at what the rest of the world is genuinely doing in real response to all of this. It would be completely wrong to suggest that Tesla, Toyota, Volkswagen, and others are simply accepting defeat quietly and helplessly. They are absolutely not. They are responding seriously, investing heavily, innovating hard, and fighting back with strategies that could change everything. Toyota is perhaps the most genuinely interesting case because for years it resisted going fully electric and committed to hybrids instead. Many critics accused Toyota of being far too slow and dangerously conservative in its approach to pure battery electric vehicles globally. But Toyota has been quietly and very seriously developing solid-state battery technology that could be the biggest EV breakthrough in decades. A solid-state battery offers significantly higher energy density, charges dramatically faster, and is considerably safer than all current battery types. If Toyota successfully commercializes solid-state batteries at real commercial scale, it could suddenly leap ahead of absolutely everyone, including China. Volkswagen has committed enormous capital to its EV transition and is actively building its own battery gigafactories across Europe now. General Motors and Ford in America are both investing many billions into new EV platforms, battery plants, and charging infrastructure projects. Governments across Europe and America are pouring very significant public money into supporting local battery production and domestic EV supply chains. These investments are real and genuinely significant,
But the challenge remains the same every single time. China has a decade head start. Building a truly competitive battery supply chain from scratch takes considerable time, and time is precisely what these companies do not have. The market is growing explosively right now, and every year of costly delay translates directly into permanent market share lost to China. But it is certainly not impossible. History is absolutely full of industries where determined late movers eventually caught and overtook early leaders.
The real question is whether the rest of the world can close the gap before China's lead becomes truly insurmountable forever. By 2030, most serious industry analysts agree that electric vehicles will make up the clear majority of all new car sales globally. The transition is no longer any question of if it will happen, it is purely a question of who will actually lead it. If current trends continue without any major disruption, China is clearly on track to become the undisputed global king of EVs. BYD alone could realistically become the world's single largest car company by total volume within the next 5 to 7 years. CATL could become as economically important to the entire global economy as Saudi Aramco was during the height of the oil era. The batteries that power the world's entire transportation system could be almost completely designed and manufactured by Chinese companies alone. That is an extraordinary concentration of economic and geopolitical power in a single country, and many nations are very deeply worried. The country that controls the battery supply chain of this century will have leverage similar to oil producers in the last one. China clearly understands this profound truth, and it has been deliberately and patiently building towards this exact position for many years. But history consistently teaches us that no dominance lasts forever, and that technological breakthroughs can completely reset entire powerful industries overnight.
If solid-state batteries truly succeed at real commercial scale, the picture could shift dramatically and very quickly in unexpected ways. If new mining technologies reduce dependence on Chinese-controlled minerals, other countries could rapidly build genuinely competitive battery supply chains of their own. The race is absolutely not over. The battle is still being intensely and actively fought across factories, research labs, and trade negotiations everywhere. Every single electric car sold anywhere in the world today is a very real part of this larger and defining story. The outcome of this race will shape not just the car industry, but the entire global economic and political order for decades. So the next time you see an electric car quietly moving down the road, think about what it truly represents beyond clean transport. It represents a fundamental and historic shift in global power, a battle for technological supremacy defining our entire generation right now. China has moved faster, planned smarter, and built deeper foundations than anyone honestly expected or was truly prepared for at all. But the story is absolutely far from finished, and the world is only just beginning to understand what is truly at stake. The real question is not whether EVs will take over. They already are taking over, and the pace keeps accelerating every single day.
The real question is who will control them, who will truly benefit from them, and who will ultimately be left far behind. And that answer, right now, is still being written every single day, on roads, in boardrooms, and in government halls all around the world.